It's good, YouTube. Back with another video. Today we're gonna be reacting to this person. I don't know his name, but it says that he spent years inside spiritual organizations. His way he found. So you about to see what he talking about. See what we could learn from his experience.
There's a kind of spiritual student who can do all the right things. This person reads the books, speaks wisely, attends the schools and lectures, follows a teacher, even has deep spiritual experiences. But still, at the center of their life, remains exactly the same. What I want to say today is uncomfortable because this student could be you. It could be me. It has been me.
It definitely has been me too. I ain't gonna lie.
Many of us have spent years seeking, reading, studying, collecting teachings, moving from one spiritual idea to another, going through different groups, different teachers, different books, online, in person, whatever form it takes. And yet, something essential in us remains the same. This doesn't just apply spiritually. We see the same movement everywhere, only wearing different clothes. Students seek better grades, businessmen seek success, Christians wait for the coming of Christ, Buddhists wait for enlightenment, Gnostics wait for their ego to die and reach liberation somewhere far off into a distant fantasy. So you see different forms, but the same inward movement.
I see what he means. Like same same patterns. Like even those for different objectives and all that, it's still the same basis. Like when you get to the bottom of it, like what's really going on. It's the same basis, pretty much. They're all they all relate to each other in that way.
Something inside us reaching outward, hoping that through one more idea, one more achievement, one more teaching, we will finally become whole, liberated, free. But why does something essential in the core remain unchanged? Is that not the whole point of seeking? Why do years pass and the inward center, the actual quality of our presence, the essence of consciousness, the real state of our inner life, our state of consciousness, why does that stay almost exactly the same as where it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? And I know many of you are in that position who are listening today. So this is the question I want to sit with. Because if we answer it honestly, something can begin to shift. The mind can become fascinated with truth without ever allowing truth to touch our life directly.
Well said.
The mind becomes intellectually identified with truth. And in that identification, truth is held at a distance. It is studied, not lived. It is understood with the mind, but rarely integrated into the heart. We can learn incredible language of awakening in any system. We can speak about consciousness and all of the many great teachings out there. We can quote the teachings. We can imitate doctrines. We can endlessly talk about energy, ego, being, liberation. And still, when life itself touches us, when the living reality of direct personal life hits something essential inside, we react in the same old ways. We defend our structures, our beliefs, our spiritual ideas, the things the mind has convinced itself of.
Facts. It's literally a condition, or yeah, mental conditioning. Like your mind puts up, if it's accustomed to a certain situation, a certain way of thinking for a long period of time, then it's gonna over time build resistance against, against everything else. It's called cognitive dissonance. So if you say you went your whole life, 20 years, um knowing knowing the name of a company, for example, or thinking you know the name of that company, and then somebody comes and tells you, oh, you've been seeing it wrong this whole time. This is actually this way. Your brain, if you're closed minded for real, or you're just um yeah, you have a one track set mind, it's more likely for you to like really just fight against that it's actually the name that the other person told you. If that's the facts, even if it is a fact, you still going, or in some cases, you still gonna fight for your belief. Of yeah, try to fight um the fact for your belief to continue, pretty much.
Become offended, we protest, we become afraid, we become restless, we seek comfort, we defend an image just because someone said the opposite of what we believe. We return to the same confusion again and again without even knowing. A cycle that we're unconscious of. The problem is not a lack of teachings, and it's not a lack of ideas. Often, the problem is that the teachings have not yet become direct. They remain in the mind as idea, as opinion, as something we have convinced ourselves of. And the thing about the mind is, it's far too capable of using even spiritual truth as another form of distance from yourself, from others, from life. The mind becomes subconsciously attached to new ways of interpreting the teachings. The mind subconsciously does this in order to delay facing oneself. And the more brilliant the idea, the more brilliant the spiritual teaching, the more effective and longer the distraction is. the mind can consume spiritual teachings to collect, to imagine, to project, to echo to others. It can make fantasy out of what was meant to be lived. Spiritual ideas can create a beautiful environment for the mind to live in. It can create a beautiful castle inside oneself. I've seen this castle too many times, in myself and in others. This castle is decorated with endless things to distract us from what life has been trying to show us since long before we ever adopted any spiritual ideas. I want to speak personally for a moment, because what I'm saying is not theoretical for me. I've spent many years inside spiritual organizations. I gave my heart to several Gnostic groups. I studied deeply. I sat in the chambers. I followed teachers. I believed that the structure itself would carry me towards awakening. And what I discovered over time changed everything. I began to see inwardly, directly, that many of the people sitting next to me, year after year, wearing the robes, speaking the language, knowing the symbols, were not actually changing. People mistook those things for the changing. They gave more importance to the outer things rather than the inward. Something was wrong.
Nah, that's facts. Like, I can even say I was doing this myself. Like, I was learning lot, a whole lot about spirituality, or just yeah, things of that nature. And but I wasn't really practicing what I'm learning. Like for myself, I wasn't practicing it for myself, and I was just going about keep learning, keep learning. I'll apply little here and there, but I was still just be mostly learning and nothing really changing. Like the N word is the most important part about all this, to be honest.
Not with the teachings. The teachings in their pure form are real. But what was wrong
Facts.
was how the teachings were being held, how they were being transmitted, how they were being parroted. I want you to imagine something. There's a beautiful and simple image that a very close friend of mine spoke to me about recently, who understands all of this. And the image was about diamonds. Diamonds and mangoes. And the fact that
I love me some mangoes.
diamonds are not actually rare. They're very abundant within the earth.
Facts.
And people pay enormous amounts for diamonds. But the earth is full of them.
And, and you know, diamonds are just, well, crystal. Slowly. I mean, people people love diamonds for its look and all that. It's definitely majestic and beautiful, but it has its properties too. It has, I can't think of it offhand, but I know it's a crystal. And usually different crystals are good for different things. So yeah, diamonds is a crystal too. It's nothing like he said, is very abundant in the earth, but we put so much of a high value on it, um, not even understanding. Most people don't even understand what it really is. They just um, gravitate towards it because that's it's like a fashion statement and all that. Diamonds and yeah,
And objectively, they're not actually rare. Now, a mango, on the other hand, a perfectly sweet and ripened mango, is much rarer than diamonds. Uh, Probably many of you don't know this yet. Hopefully you'll taste these kinds of mangoes that we're talking about, okay? You can't get them in Western countries. In the Philippines, we call them honey mangoes. Now, the point of this is
I don't think I ever had that, but definitely want to try it. And
these mangoes,
if they better than the mangoes that I've been trying, it's, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to even. It's hard to imagine that because mangoes is one of my favorite fruits off rip. So imagine if he's saying it pales in comparison to the ones over there where he's explaining the Philippines and stuff over there, like in the eastern countries and stuff. I could only imagine.
compared to a diamond, a mango nourishes you. A diamond is simply something that can be possessed. And it's also something reserved for the privileged. It's something you can wear, something beautiful that you can show and tell. But a diamond does not feed your soul. And me and my friend spoke about this in relation to what's happening inside many organizations. People were collecting diamonds, holding the teachings like jewels, wearing them as badges of identity, marveling at them, repeating them, critiquing them, interpreting them, modifying them to their own whims, but not being nourished by them, not actually growing and changing inside.
That's a good analogy.
In my own journey over the years, I had to ask myself very honestly, was I doing the same? Was I collecting diamonds while my soul went hungry? To touch something real, not to merely marvel at. This is why I eventually walked out of those structures, not in rejection, not in anger, not to say they are all wrong. Many people in all types of organizations carry real light. But I walked out to discover what the teachings actually point to, which is not something that can be found in any organization or any mental structure. It can only be found within, in a place where there are no structures for the ego to stand on. And here's where it gets more subtle, because it's not only the beginner who falls into this. This is the part that almost no one talks about. Even those who have attained real things, who have had genuine experiences, who have practiced for decades, who have built what the traditions call the inner bodies, who have touched real states of consciousness, can still be trapped. How? Because the ego is cunning. when it cannot defeat you in the world, it follows you into the inner worlds, into the spiritual life. And there, it wears a new costume. It becomes a spiritual ego. It speaks in the language of truth. It uses experiences as currency. It collects attainments as trophies. It compares levels. It maintains position. It defends its authority. It even speaks wisdom, while still serving itself. This is why finding the path is so rare, and why so few walk it. Not because truth is hidden, but because what is false, what is a lie, is very skilled at imitating truth. The ego can study spirituality for 30 years and come out more refined in concept, more convincing in explanation, even more beautiful in language, while inwardly remaining just as mechanical, just as asleep as before. It's something to sit with, something to reflect on, if this is confusing to understand. And above all, we have to be willing to see this within ourselves. That is the way you will understand it. We should not reflect on it while considering others. But we have to consider this and observe this within ourselves. Because if we spend our lives pointing at what's false in other people's choices, we've simply found one more way to avoid looking at our own.
Bars.
So, as we reflect, if any of this sparks resistance within you, then that is precisely where the work has to resume. And there's one thing that makes all of this unavoidably real: death. Because everything we have collected in this life, every idea, every belief, every book read, every level attained, every title, every spiritual identity, we cannot take with us after death. We might have heard this teaching intellectually in different forms, but have we really sat with it? Have we allowed the reality of our own death to show us what is actually valuable inside us and what is only decoration? When we lie on our deathbed, the concepts will not comfort us. The credentials will not accompany us. The spiritual identity we built will dissolve like a costume at the end of a play. What will remain is only what was real, only what was lived, only what became essence, only what became truth and love. And all of the lies and all of the illusions become exposed like a corpse in the sun. That's the beautiful thing about time and death. The truth is always revealed eventually. That is the quiet test behind every teaching. That's why so many spiritual teachings and traditions speak of death so directly, not to frighten us, but to clarify what matters. Just like we collect material things, we can collect spiritual things. And just like we leave our money and possessions behind at the end of our life, we leave behind all of our accumulated ideas and beliefs too. Only what has become our actual being continues. So I want to offer you a question. A question I've had to sit with myself many times. We can ask it together. Take a deep breath. Prepare the mind to reflect. And ask yourself, what would truly be my inner state? What would truly be my state of consciousness without my beliefs? Without my convictions? Let the question linger without
Oh, that's a deep question, man.
trying to answer anything intellectually. Just let it float in the air. Let the self-inquiry speak through your presence. Move it to the heart. What would truly be my inner state without my spiritual identifications, without my spiritual ideas, without the group I belong to, without the books I've read, without the teacher I follow, without the impressions I use to explain myself to myself. Sit down with it. Who would you be without those things? If we sit with that question properly, without rushing it, something begins to shift. Because the question itself is a mirror, and what it reflects is rarely what we expect. For many of us, what we would find underneath all of those structures is something surprisingly empty, surprisingly hollow. For many people, maybe also some fear, some restlessness, feeling like there's no foundation, no ground to stand on. So some confusion might be there. Asking these questions has not created these reactions and confusions. It was already there, already carrying it inside. You may also find some desperation, some desperate grasping onto ideas again, because of an old loneliness that we never touched, that we never faced. Something very real and very personal to you, especially in terms of the inner work that life has given you in this life. Seeing this is not a failure. This is the beginning of honesty, of truth. It's the beginning of the real work. And what is the real work? What it is?
Oh, this one of the deepest videos I think I've watched. Damn.
Is also the reason why it's so hard to remember, and why it's so easy to overlook and forget, because it may surprise you how simple it is. Observe yourself. Be fully present here and now with the entirety of your being. Meditate in a deep stillness that takes you to your true nature. See the reactions. Truly notice the identifications from moment to moment. Observe them. Go beyond the mind. Remain with what is here before naming it and labeling it, before the interpretation of your own life through learned systems, through a pure mind. And all of this sounds very basic. Too basic for the mind, because it's not meant for the mind. The mind will take it, consume it, and believe it understands it too much that it won't practice it. It won't live it, because it cannot. It's impossible for the mind to understand all of that. So, what many call basic is often what has never been truly lived. That's why so many organizations and schools from so many traditions, it's so easy to forget the foundations. But I say this, that it is extremely important that we return to the foundations of the true inner work. Not because they are lesser, but because they are rarely lived. And it just makes sense, because the deeper the roots, the more light the branches can bear. The deeper the foundation, the higher a tower can stand. If your roots are shallow, the branches cannot hold light for long. If the foundation of your house is weak, the tower becomes a mere ornament for just a moment, and a ruin shortly after. We don't return to the foundations of the work of awareness because they are basic. We return because without them, what is higher simply just becomes imagination. And that to me seems sad, especially when in the beginning we were sincere seekers, but just lost our way in beautiful and grandiose concepts and misplaced hopes. And so I want to say a bit about what happens when this radical inner honesty begins. When the illusions fade, when the false begins to die, something genuinely beautiful and new appears. Not something theatrical, not something grandiose, not something that needs to announce itself. We can call this our essence. It's a different quality of consciousness, a different quality of presence that appears. Something much more invisible and more powerful than anything learned before. It's a different kind of light, a different kind of intelligence. Not mental brilliance, not borrowed certainty, borrowed from a teacher or a book that sold us a nice idea, but something much more simpler, something cleaner, something infinitely more pure. We can say that it is innocence, without naivety, love without self-display, stillness without dullness, being alive without fascination, clarity without desperation, strength without aggression or force, like water which is gentle enough to flow, but strong enough to carve stone over time. And these kinds of qualities appear when the false dies and reality reveals itself through honesty, through no longer holding ourselves together through ideas. We no longer need to hold ourselves together through concepts, because something more real begins to hold us from within when we have the courage to be honest. And then what once felt very small suddenly becomes luminous, because you start to shine from your own essence, your own being. A moment of sincerity, a silent observation, a restrained reaction, suddenly becomes very clear seeing when you're not operating from striving towards very high ideas. But when you return to what is true and what you can observe here and now, the path suddenly starts to bear fruits, bear mangoes. These basic parts of the work begin to carry infinitely more light than all of the beautiful structures and identities that the mind once built itself around. You begin to truly grow, illuminated from your own being. Is that not every person's sovereign right? When form collapses, essence appears. When striving ends, seeing begins. What we thought was the path disappears, and only what is reveals itself. If something in what I've said has touched something real in you, if you felt the hunger I'm describing, if you're tired of collecting concepts and ready to actually begin, then you're welcome to join a live course I've created called Awakening the Inner Light, beginning May 3rd. A space for real inner work, for people who sense what I've been pointing at today and want to do something about it. Not more teachings to accumulate, not more concepts, but working with what we can actually observe and practice and verify within our own consciousness. The link is below. And whether you join or not, I want to leave you with this. The castles we build in the mind are not the path. They are what must be seen through. And when they finally begin to fall, you will discover something that was never outside of you to begin with.
All I know is you spam bars, bro. And bro, it's a lot of thinking, bro. Like, his insight makes you think about about everything, really. Like I know y'all saw me just looking everywhere because I was really really thinking. Like, s- good questions, very deep, good questions that really make you think. That's the video. Comment anything that you learn, or if you are accustomed to spirituality and stuff, like you was going anywhere spiritual, like, and you find yourself in this predicament, and if anything that he's saying, you could verify it as well. I would like to know in the comments if you can. Yeah, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I hope you guys having a good day or night whenever it's reaching you. And yeah, I'm grateful for you for being here. Much love. Peace.